Welcome to day 253 of TFIF 365. And today I want to talk to you about something that I'm calling binaries are the domain of the privileged. And let me explain that, because I always talk to you about how binaries are problematic, if not detrimental, to supremacy-free, coercion-free, discrimination-free, and exploitation-free. And the reason why is because of the first one, supremacy-free. Very few folks who are trying to do this work can actually be honest about where they sit in the supremacy hierarchy, right? And so when you are at the most privileged points of the supremacy hierarchy, where you get to leverage coercion, where you get to leverage discrimination, where you get to leverage exploitation, you can live in binaries for you because you get to make the rules. This is also, again, an example of why I challenge people when they talk about what's fair. What's fair is defined by the people with the most power, with the most privilege. And so when you have the most privilege, you can live in binaries. Think about parenting, right? When I was growing up, it was my way or the highway, right? It was do as I say, not as I do. There were so many binary things that didn't make sense that I tried to push back on, that I got into a lot of trouble with because they just didn't make sense to me. And so you see that with, let's see, people, if you're in organizations where hierarchy really means something, where they really believe that people in the C-suite are better than people in management, and people in management are better than individual contributors, right? They're the people who are in the C-suite are the most privileged, so binaries for them work. It's yes or no, my way or the highway, that kind of thing. But when you are from marginalized communities, when you have been targeted, when you have been the target of systems, institutions, and policies designed to privilege the few at the expense of the many, you live in the gray, you live in the nuance. There's very little about your life that is binary, very little about your life that is binary. And I want people to think about that, because if you live your life as either yes or no, right or wrong, when you live your life with or as the major contributor instead of and or neither, we have problems. When it's your way or the highway, you don't make space for those conversations that challenge your already formed perspectives about what life is, right? Binaries are fine in certain circumstances, right? When I'm dealing, when you're mixing chemicals, I'm sure measuring binaries, will this make me blow up? Well, it won't make me blow up, kind of thing. But there are few things that are, I'm trying to think right now that in everyday life that are binaries, right? Even when you're talking about, let's say, harm in a child playing sports and the harm that to consider in that. Let's say instead of that's why they're doing less tackle football at a younger age. It's flag football. It's touch football. So there are ways to get around these quote unquote binaries when you get more information that either they're problematic, they're harmful, they're all these kind of things. But we don't have a problem when folks find that binaries don't benefit them when it comes to positive things. They'll exclude the binaries then. So yeah, just think about this. When you find yourself in situations where you're leaning into what am I trying to say? When you're leaning into the truth of, or the fact of, or that's not what I'm really trying to say. When you're leaning into the certainty, that's the word, of a binary, I need you to start looking at, again, doing the self-evaluation, where you fall in the hierarchy. Where are you? Are you the most privileged in this scenario? Because if you're the most vulnerable, if you're the most marginalized, I best believe very few things, unless it's life or death in that moment, are binary. It's mostly people from marginalized communities and from vulnerable communities. We live in the gray. That's why community works for us. That's why we survive with each other. We understand that we get there together, not at all. So I just want to highlight that, because so many people talk about binaries but they talk about them in an abstract. And binaries are the domain of the privilege. So until tomorrow, peace. Become a sustaining sponsor at kimcreighton.com/support-the-work and help make this work happen.